Dude, you're so full of shit. You've been negative about this game
When
since
do you
its
ever say
announcement.
anything
LOL.
positive?
We all see
I
your
click on your
agenda
videos
here.
just to see how much more
Fuck
of a
you.
pretentious dickhead
Another
you can
entitled
be. Not
clickbait
for
spoiled Brad
reviews.
video.
It's
Honestly,
not
your
even
opinion is a
released,
joke and your
dumbass. There's still a day
credibility
one
is
patch.
non
You're just
existent.
blindly stupid.
You're just
and
a
don't understand
hater.
that,
Anthem
obviously.
is a great looter.
Drop it.
So the obvious question is, why the Anthem intro? What's the purpose? Well, the answer is pretty simple. 1, Dragon Age 4 and Anthem are both Bioware games that share a large chunk of development staff. 2, the development time span has a great deal of overlap between the two titles, with resources being juggled back and forth. And 3, a large number of the exact same issues that have plagued Anthem since its conceptual birth in 2012 are now becoming increasingly clear within Dragon Age 4. A lot of these revelations come from the combined information contained within 2 expose-type articles written by Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, and I don't normally have positive things to say about mainstream gaming news or journalism, but in this case, what we see is excellent work that digs deep into the fabric of what is currently affecting the AAA space, and in particular, BioWare, EA, and the major titles they have or are currently working on. Both of the articles will be linked down below, and normally I would never link to a site like Kotaku because it is a haven for trashy political propaganda and hacky written articles with terribly skewed and poorly researched narratives. But in this instance, there is high quality work from Jason Schreier that deserves to be referenced and shared. Last time I took a shot at general Kotaku material, I had some comments claiming that I was wrong and it's not a total dumpster fire. So for a really quick example here, because why not, there are hundreds of them, look no further than Nathan Grayson. He's a perfect Kotaku example of calling people he doesn't agree with alt-right, even when they are beyond any shadow of a doubt not alt-right, and he brings us hit pieces like Overwatch Pro quits after harassment over whether she was really playing. That one's a real winner. I'll just briefly summarize here. A few Overwatch pros made a fake esports account called Ellie. It was a guy named Punisher playing all along, pretending to be a girl. The fake account gets signed to an organization almost immediately, and the community is like, LOL, what? What is going on? There were obvious signs that the account was fake, and that the gameplay was being staged, so many different viewers started saying, that's not a real account. Then our favorite Kotaku writer over here mashes out an article filled with lines like, esports is not a meritocracy, it's a male-dominated scene in which gender essentialism runs rampant and in which women are often made to feel unwelcome. Problem is, if you take even 5 minutes to do some rudimentary research, you'll find that the statistics he cited to reach a rough 50-50 gender spread wrongfully included mobile games. He also ignored all of the previously published data that his own site had put out there prior to this very article regarding game genre demographics, and the real spread of male to female runs upwards of 98% to 2% for FPS and sports games in particular. And when you take all of these things into consideration, with an extremely condensed apex tier of competition, the spread of male to female representation in Overwatch and other FPS shooter circuits is not even a statistical anomaly. So yes, it's pretty much a meritocracy, but finding that out was clearly too much work for him. So anyways, he writes trash-ass political pieces calling gamer culture misogynistic and prejudiced because they figured out an obviously fake account was fake and then called it fake. So obviously all gamers are horrible sexists. That's the gist of why I don't like referencing Kotaku, because in large part, it's fucking garbage. That being said, a lot of the work from Jason Schreier, and certainly these past few pieces, have been excellent quality with extremely valuable information to extrapolate, and thus here I am discussing them and doing a video on the struggling uncertainty of Dragon Age 4. I've been a fan of the Dragon Age series for a very long time. Between Origins and Inquisition, I probably logged upwards of 1,000 hours, with many different playthroughs. Unfortunately, this all occurred well before I decided to get involved with YouTube, so I don't have any footage of my adventures. Because of this, the background will instead be various segments of convention footage and trailers. But I want to be clear here, this isn't an outside perspective looking in without emotional investment. I truly care about Dragon Age. The first big problem with Dragon Age 4 is the reputation that Bioware has built up over the years. Now, certainly a portion of that reputation has fallen flat due to Anthem, but the truth is that entirely separate franchises don't often see a great deal of overlap in audience frustration. As an example, you have Fallout and Elder Scrolls from Bethesda. Fallout 76 is a disaster and burnt a lot of community goodwill. Surely a few players will now hold off on Elder Scrolls 6 as a result, but the majority will tentatively watch the title and probably end up judging it in a separate light rather than write it off completely as a result of a disconnected Fallout game. The same is true for Bioware. Anthem is firing on all cylinders for worst fuck up in years, but Anthem is also an always online shared world cooperative multiplayer game, EA's wet dream, and it's also something entirely new and unique for Bioware as a studio. Because it is not within their typical wheelhouse and their true strength lies in choice-based RPGs like Dragon Age, it should ease concerns, right? Well, no, not really. Bioware built up a reputation for a specific type of game and garnered a persona of housing top-tier talent that was always capable of making it work. Sure, that crystal clear image was cracked with a game like Mass Effect Andromeda, but it remains mostly intact to this day regarding the Dragon Age franchise. The problem is, a lot of the talent responsible for the games that built up community expectations are now gone. The idea of making it work is referenced explicitly in Jason Schreier's expose on Anthem as Bioware magic. Bioware employees themselves view this to be the expectation that everything will come together and coalesce around a concept right before launch, even if the road has been bumpy and difficult every other step of the way. This idea has actually been seen before in Dragon Age Inquisition, which was an extremely well-received title. So because of that relative success, the fixed idea that Bioware magic will always come through was reinforced to a point of dependency. We have now seen without any dispute that this Bioware magic failed to come together within Anthem, and honestly this is not even meant to be hostile, at least not this time. It just appears to be the sad reality of the situation. Anthem faced a variety of different obstacles, from leadership indecision to engine compatibility problems, which rendered the game's development timeframe largely wasted until the last 16 or so months, in which the development team labored frantically to ship a worthy product, but simply could not because of the many issues. During this final crunch time, many employees were subject to burnout, which is described as a horrific breakdown in which weeks, months, or even permanent absence ensue after a mental breakdown, and my heart goes out to these employees because work conditions like that in the final year of a 6-year-long development time span is just terrible. The organic migration of talent and staff, which happens all the time across the entire industry, coupled with the forced burnout that has been occurring at Bioware over the past few years as a result of working conditions, means that the studio is no longer the same entity that brought the world Dragon Age Origins or Inquisition or the early Mass Effect games. The truth is, Bioware is a studio in crisis, and Dragon Age 4 is right in the middle of the shitstorm. Bioware magic is basically what happens in every high school or college English class. You get a paper, you toy with ideas, maybe start an outline, scrap it, start again, procrastinate, for example, the entire 2016 year of Anthem's development, and eventually you end up doing the whole thing the day before it's due. Sometimes it works, it all comes together and the paper turns out great, but more often you sort of feel like it's okay, but it would be better if you had more time. Even though you had plenty of time, it just didn't get used properly, and then you get a shit grade in the class. I'm not saying that the crunch time scramble will affect Dragon Age 4, but it's on the table and we should all be aware of that. Even if it happens, it's not necessarily a death sentence per se though. The obvious example is Dragon Age Inquisition, where Bioware developers themselves have specifically referenced the success and said they wish it had not happened, because it reinforced the idea of Bioware magic too heavily. But anyway, Inquisition proved that games can waste half their development time and still come out the other side. It just shouldn't be something that is relied upon, and unfortunately right now it seems that Bioware, for a variety of different reasons, is forced into relying upon it. The next major problem is frequent reboots. It's an easy topic to find examples for. The best one that comes to mind off the top of my head is Destiny 2, a game that got rebooted right before launch, and it clearly showed. Dragon Age 4 has now been subjected to multiple reboots and reformats. The first version of Dragon Age 4 was codenamed Joplin and emphasized a story arc involving spies within a region called Tevinter Imperium, and the development staff have expressed sadness that this product will in fact never be made. The game has been entirely rebooted. Not only has it been scrapped and restarted, the team has also been bounced around like a ping pong ball. First, staff were pulled to Mass Effect Andromeda, then they were pulled to Anthem, and now they are tired, drained, and faced with the daunting task of following up both of those games with a Dragon Age release that has been entirely reformatted away from the cohesive vision they once had for it. Another major issue is EA's obsession with games as a service. It's no secret now, anyone who follows the industry knows it very well, but EA is fixated on long-term, low-cost live service games that can be increasingly monetized with drip-fed content, and they have plainly stated that they desire all major franchises to adopt this methodology. Because of this, there is a well-earned atmosphere of skepticism regarding Dragon Age 4, because it is unclear how well the Dragon Age franchise would hold up during the conversion from a single-player narrative to shared world online only multiplayer. I cannot confirm that it will be a game as a service. I have not been able to find concrete confirmation anywhere that I've researched, nor have I been able to disprove it. So if anyone has more info on that, feel free to post it down below in the comments. But moving on, when a traditional single-player game evolves to a live service, well, we don't have an overabundance of examples, but how about Fallout 76? Does that fit the bill? It isn't always smooth. On top of this, there has been the claim that EA and Bioware are placing an emphasis on reusing the base coding framework from Anthem to construct Dragon Age 4 and further build on top of it. So knowing that Anthem is an online-only live service game, it certainly lends some credence to the speculation that Dragon Age 4 may go full speed ahead with EA's Brave New World-esque vision for the future of their games. All of the problems within Bioware that led to the lackluster release of Mass Effect Andromeda and the outright disaster of Anthem, they are all still there. After the expose on Anthem's development process got released, Bioware and EA put out a statement which essentially denied everything and pretended that their development environment and management process were in perfect working order. A statement which was later adjusted and a problem was finally acknowledged, but the knee-jerk reaction of denial clearly shows that these issues are currently ongoing. If there are not significant changes in a relatively short time frame, Dragon Age 4 will be subjected to every single one of the problems which have verifiably killed games already. People don't like hearing about these kinds of issues. That's why I make it a sort of joke and did the intro that way. Even when all signs point to a struggling project, players often plug their ears and throw a fucking tantrum. Trying to deflate the industrial hype balloon even just a tiny little bit annoys a lot of fanboys, especially when it's done pre-release. But if we pretend that everything is amazing and we slop guzzle all of the fake marketing material that is put out by AAA developers and publishers, it leads to blind purchases, which reinforces shoddy practices and detrimental industry norms. Dragon Age 4, so far, from what little we do know, has shown pretty much exclusively bad signs. I'm not saying the concept or the universe is bad. Remember, I love Dragon Age. I absolutely love it. I want to be wrong. I want it to be amazing and release in perfect working condition. But we need to be realistic and see the landscape for what it is. When you cram all of the meaningful development into the last 12 or 16 months because of reboots, indecision, and transferred staff, you don't leave enough time to actually polish the game or finish the ideas that even made it onto the table in the first place. When you wait that long, what essentially ends up happening is the first wave of customers purchase or even pre-order the game only to act as the beta testers, having paid full price for an untested and unfinished game. But that's a topic for an entirely separate video because I could rant for days about that shit. In the end, Dragon Age 4 is already anything but smooth. Dragon Age in general is a franchise in crisis owing to the previous panic-driven crunch time dash for Inquisition, which admittedly turned out fairly well, but the expectation that it is a repeatable practice is very, very unhealthy. Be extremely skeptical of anything you hear regarding Dragon Age 4, especially if everyone starts to puff it up like they did with Anthem. And please, don't write off anyone that curbs some of the hype, because refusal to acknowledge risk and possible downsides is legitimately the practice of weak-minded individuals. That's it though. Video is too long already. If you want to support the channel, there are a bunch of links down below in the description, but enough rambling, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.